Okay, we have videos 1 and 2. This is video 3. We are kind of getting into the study of personality. I will be bringing some concepts to you, some ideologies to you, some of my thoughts to you. And folks, this is a springboard. This is a starting point. As you continue your education in the field of psychology, you're going to change your ideas, you're going to change your thoughts, but at least this will be a starting place. Now, what is personality? When do we have a personality? Does everyone have a personality? Well, these are some of the questions that we can ask, and it appears as though that a lot of individuals, or we judge individuals by their personality. He's a fun person. He's a sad person. She's a fun person. And we can go on and talk. She's serious, and we can go on and describe personalities like that. But one thing I do believe that's an overriding concept with personality is the fact that it is a pattern of behaviors. Now, an explanation of this, if an individual jumps under the bed every time they hear thunder, and they hear thunder 5 times, and they jump under the bed 5 times, we can kind of predict what's going to happen on the 6th time. We can predict it. Predictions may not always come true. I understand that because we are dealing with personality. And this is one area in the field of psychology that individuals will take a small study, a small example, and extrapolate it to the entire global community. It doesn't work because we are individuals, we are unique, and we are different. All right, what is personality? Personality, again, is some enduring traits and behaviors that are relatively permanent. Now, if you can imagine yourself back in the 3rd grade, and the type of individual that you were in the 3rd grade or 4th grade of any one of these grades, you will probably really see, if you really examine it, that your personality has not changed to any great extent other than that which is due to the developmental process, but your personality has probably not changed a great deal from the time you were in the 3rd or 4th grade. Except, like I said, except the age factor is involved. Yes. And so it is relatively permanent. It stays with us. Now, I would imagine that catastrophic events can change personality, but basically, personality is pretty much the same. We develop some patterns. Throughout our lifespan that we may engage in, but these patterns are still based on our personality. Okay, so what do we have here? And again, when does personality start? Freud thought our personality was pretty much formed by the age of 6 or 7. Erik Erikson felt as though that our personality wasn't formed until the age of 14. I have a tendency to believe that our personality is formed, or the beginning of our personality is formed at a very young age. And so we'll go from there. You can go ahead and assume any position you want to on this, and I'm sure that there'll be positive points and negative points on both of our positions. But a theory is an assumption. So that's what we're looking at. We're looking at theories of personality. In some instances, a theory can lead to a hypothesis, which can be tested, which can be falsified. It can be shown whether it's right or wrong. Okay, some of the words that we have connected with personality and theories of personality. We have alcohol in the brain. Cocaine played a role in the development of personality. Freud thought that cocaine was a great overall healer. A matter of fact, for youngsters that were teething, infants that were teething, they even recommended some type of cocaine solution. Some of the theorists had affairs with one another. One individual developed a way that he thought a bird could guide a rocket. This was during World War II, and the government was kind of interested in this, and they were going to take a look at this, but it didn't go that far. And I always wondered. I imagine the bird was a pigeon, and I wondered if they ever thought what's going to happen to the bird after the rocket hits its target. I don't know. Just wondering. The castration complex, that was a development by Freud. We're going to be talking about some of that. The id, ego, and superego, these are just some of the terms that will be connected with theories of personality. Now, if we go to psychosurgery, this is kind of interesting because we had trephination about as long as we can remember, as long as we can go back into recorded history, and that is rubbing a hole in the skull to let out the evil spirits. Then in the Middle Ages, we had shaman, and they would stand on the street, and if someone come to them and said, hey, I have problems, I don't feel good, I'm depressed, if the term depressed was used, but anyway, I just don't feel good in the head, the shaman would come up and fake an opening in the skull, and the shaman would have someone to help him, and then the shaman would have some stones handed to him by his helper, and then the shaman would go ahead and show the stones to his patient, and this was what was causing the problem. So it might be where we get the term rocks in your head, rocks in my head, rocks in that person's head. Then we had a prefrontal economy. This was kind of interesting because individuals thought that the reason, particularly Antonio Menez, the reason that individuals were behaving the way they do is that there was a malfunction between the frontal lobe and the limbic system. The limbic system is the system of emotions. So what was necessary, what Menez did was took and he would squirt with a needle or some type of device alcohol between the prefrontal lobe and the limbic system, destroying the cells in there. And he received some type of Nobel Prize for this great invention that they had. Now, the frontal lobotomy was developed by Freeman and Watts, and this was kind of interesting too with the frontal lobotomy. This was popular in the 50s, and Freeman was kind of a showman. And what they did, they took an ice pick and would put it in your upper eye, or in your skull, and then tap it with a mallet and break through to the brain, and then squish the brain around. Well, Freeman was a showman. And he could take two of these ice picks, evidently, and do both sides of the brain kind of simultaneously. He also was an individual that walked around with, he had a white gown on, but he walked around with short sleeves on because he wanted to show his tremendous biceps. In my case, it's just the opposite. Okay, but this was Freeman. And then Watts was an individual that worked with him, and it is kind of interesting. You recall President Kennedy. He had a sister that was probably didn't have a high IQ. This was the main concern. Did not have a high IQ, and so a lobotomy was performed on her, and up to that point, she could really pretty much function on her own. And the reason was Joseph Kennedy John Kennedy's dad and also his sister's dad didn't care for it because the sister, who was somewhat impaired in her thinking, was showing an interest in boys. So he thought, well, I'll just get a lobotomy and that will take care of everything. Well, it did, because she did receive the lobotomy. After she received the lobotomy, she had a difficult time in feeding herself and a difficult time in controlling any of her other body functions. Okay, I'm going to end the video here. I'll be starting with video 3A, and we will be visiting about types of therapy. There's about 400 of them. But until I do, I get back with you, and I will be starting on video 3A quite soon. And then we will continue talking about the types of therapy, and then we will be going on to Sigmund Freud.